Well, good morning and welcome to Dallas. I was telling some coworkers, my career actually started in Dallas. I'm from West Virginia originally, went to Western University, but I did my internships at Texas Instruments here in Dallas. I actually worked in the, what was then the Artificial Intelligence Lab of Texas Instruments, and my summer project was to participate in the development of a flight simulator for the U.S. government. And when I first got here, I actually did some Lisp programming. Anybody ever heard of Lisp or actually programmed in Lisp? Yeah, I'm old. It happens that way. I think for the first couple of weeks, I actually made 2 waves move in the ocean for the simulator. And then the rest of my internship was working with what was then called TI Speech. TI Speech was, and this is before cell phones. It's a long time ago. But TI Speech was actually a voice interaction with the simulator itself. So I got the software to work. I got it integrated in the simulator. We brought in pilots so that we could record their voice patterns so that the simulator could recognize them. And shortly after I left for the summer, I got a call from my supervisor. And he's like, "Joe, I got some bad news. We had to pull your module out of the simulator." And I'm like, "Yeah, it worked. It's like all of our testing worked." He's like, "Well, turns out when your plane is crashing, even though you're an experienced pilot, you scream like a little girl, and the software no longer recognizes your voice patterns." So from a product management perspective, that was a big lesson learned for me. Had somebody thought before we started the work that these voice patterns are going to change if your flight is changing, then all would have been well. But today in product management, it's still a lesson learned for me. So what we're going to talk today is SAS ITRM, the SAS 9.4 product roadmap. M10 will be our upcoming release. I want to start with a message of gratitude. Each and every day, each of you, when you report problems with our software, when you recommend enhancements, when you use software in ways that we never intended, we learn from that, and it makes our product better. So you and individuals like you that work for some 12,500 companies worldwide on some 35,000 SAS 9 deployments, you make us better, and I truly appreciate the time and effort you spend with SAS. We don't take that lightly. When you call with issues, we do our level best to respond. When you ask for enhancements, we do our best to respond. It's still a business, but we're here because you're here. That said, the SAS vision is clearly Viya. SAS has a very clear vision with what we want Viya to be and how we want Viya to use. At the same time, and this comes from the top all the way down, SAS 9.4 is not going anywhere. We're going to allow you to adopt Viya on your own terms and conditions, on your own timeline, and without any concern of support on the way. That said, there will come a day, and that day is no time soon, where the adoption of Viya is clearly the pathway for SAS. Then we will start activities to not focus on SAS. But until that happens, you can rest assured that we continue development, we continue support, and we continue to appreciate your usage of our product. SAS has been in business for 50 years coming July. When I was putting the slides together, it occurred to me, our country is going to turn, the U.S. is going to turn 250 years. The fact that SAS has existed for a fifth of the history of the U.S., I think is a huge credit to our commitment to you as customers, our response to your issues, and how we're moving forward. If you look at the history of SAS 9.4, we're approaching 16 years of the SAS 9.4 major release. We're 9 maintenance into the release now. We will be releasing our 10th maintenance release in 2027. So SAS 9.4, critical SAS, absolutely essential to you as customers, and we're moving forward. Like I said, we're working on M10 now, and I will be talking about M10. Before I want to get there, I want to talk about a couple of our recent releases. These are releases that continue to be under standard support, starting with 9.4 M8. The reason I want to review this history is we've set some foundational components for what we delivered in M9 and what we will deliver in M10 and even M11 and beyond. For 9.4 M8, we made an infrastructure update. We moved from Java 8 to Java 11, Spring 3 to Spring 5. From a SAS perspective, from the SAS 9.4 platform, it's our intent never deliver software that will make you change any of your code or any of your processes. That's not true for the many products and solutions that lay on top of the platform internal to SAS before they're delivered. If you're looking at a change of like Java and Spring, the ripple effect through the SAS 9.4 product suites, and there are hundreds of products in SAS, is a large effort for SAS to undergo. Each and every product has to be tested, validated. Does it work with updated jars that are there? Does it work with the new Spring versions that are there? If not, they have to be modified. So it's a heavy lift, and that explains why it takes SAS about 18 months to re-release a maintenance release on SAS 9.4. Viya, we're continuous delivery. The entire platform shifts the whole. It all rolls forward. We're still in our traditional development model for SAS 9.4. In addition to the Java and Spring updates, we made a shift from TC Server to Tomcat and from Gemfire to Geode. If you're not aware, SAS Institute, SAS 9.4 as a matter of fact, is the sponsor for Geode. The project owner is at SAS. We have a development team that's responsible for Geode. If you're looking for an open source project to contribute to, I am sure that the team would be more than willing to accept and review your submissions. On top of that, we made a shift for the SAS Foundation side. The shift we made was response to OpenSSL. Historically, SAS has always delivered OpenSSL libraries within our software. That burden was large on SAS, especially if you look at the number of CVEs reported. If you look at the central nature of OpenSSL, it was not good business for SAS on the Foundation side to deliver SSL libraries. With that, we made adjustments so that in 9.4 M8, instead of using the SSL libraries provided by SAS, we now use those provided by the operating system. With that, there was also the shift with the announcement and release of TLS 1.3. So in addition to supporting TLS 1.2, we added 1.3. We had VIP support, and back to those products and solution releases. The count I have is about 178 individual SAS products and solutions that lay on top of the platform, made adjustments and re-released with the 9.4 M8 platform. Moving on to SAS 9.4 M9, and ironically enough, the lift for M9 was actually a larger lift than the M8. Again, we made a shift in our Java and Spring releases. We're now supporting Java 21 and Spring 6, and this included updates of thousands of Java components within their system and Spring components. We also did a complete head-to-toe review of all the jars that we deliver with SAS. All told, we removed about 8,500 jars from the SAS system. These were not individual jars. These were dated versions of jars that we've provided historically for your use as well as the use of SAS products. The reason we took that exercise on was the security risk of delivering those jars. Every time you run security scanning software at your site, those jars exist. They would be flagged, whether they're used or not. So it was a big benefit for you as a time saving and for SAS to do that exercise. Again, it was not an easy activity, but it was a well worthwhile. On the ZOS side, and SAS 9.4 is still supported on ZOS. It's a very profitable and very used component within the SAS 9.4 infrastructure. On the ZOS side, we continue to support Java 8. SAS runs on the mainframe as a 31-bit application. Java 8 was the last version from IBM that supported a 31-bit version of Java. So we teamed with IBM, and we dedicated a significant team on the SAS 9 side to allow the 31-bit Java on ZOS to use 64-bit Java 21. The work has been completed, the work was delivered, and the work was well received. The adoption on our mainframe side, and typically when you ship a new release of software on the mainframe, it's not immediately adopted by lots and lots of customers. With our shift to Java 21, we saw an almost immediate adoption by our mainframe customers moving to 9.4 M9. The work we've done has been problem-free, and it's working well. The next two bullets I have italicized because these are foundation elements that we delivered in 9.4 M9 leading up to M10. And those were TLS automation for the web application server. You can think of that as the SAS middle tier. And we also delivered multi-factor authentication support for our SAS middle tier. If you're not familiar with the term middle tier, I think most of you are, that's our web application layer. That's where we're operating with those components. The product and solution lift was actually larger for 9.4 M9 than it was for M8. I think there was around 190 individual products and solutions that re-released with 9.4 M9. In the history of software, and clearly I've been around for a while, every once in a while you hit on a release that is just right, and that is adopted, and customers cling to it. In the industry, Rail 7 was one of those releases. 9.4 M8 for SAS has been one of those releases, and 9.4 M9 has been remarkably stable. So the last two maintenance releases have given great promise, great stability, and we've had very few problems reported, whether it be in-place upgrades, migrations, out-of-the-box deployments, or usage. So I think that we're doing really good work in the SAS world. If you see a trend here between 9.4 M8 and 9.4 M9, it is no coincidence. We are very focused on security from a SAS 9.4 perspective. All vendors are very focused on security in today's world. It's critical for you as a customer, and it's the right thing to do. Even as a customer, if you don't think it's the right thing to do, then if you're regulated by the government or your industry, you quickly learn that security is a focus for your products. For everything you do, everything you say, everything you release, security is central, and we do not take that lightly within the SAS 9.4 platform. On top of our releases in the industry and in the interest of security, on a regular basis, typically quarterly, we release security updates. Is everybody in the room familiar with security updates from SAS? That population is kind of what I expected. Just based on the support tracks that I see coming in, the number of calls that we get for CVEs, is this resolved? When clearly it has been resolved because we released a security update that included it. The knowledge, or the general knowledge of the SAS 9.4 population, that these security updates are available, and they're available, like I said, typically on a quarterly basis, is something that we're focused on. You retrieve security updates from the SAS Product Security Update site. In addition, in the SAS Guide to Software Updates, we've provided very explicit information about security updates. This is where you find regular updates to reported CVEs, hot fixes associated with vulnerabilities or security issues associated with our software. It is critical that you be familiar with these security updates, and I couldn't recommend any higher that each of you explore those, understand how to retrieve them, the installation instructions for them, and use them regularly. If you request a new software depot, so if you place an order for your existing software or for the next release of the software, all security updates are included in those orders. On a weekly basis at SAS, we fulfill well over 100 orders each and every week. That peaks during release cycles. When we come out with new releases, that number increases about tenfold. But on an average Wednesday week, we fulfill well over 100 orders of the SAS 9.4 platform. In addition, there is a system evaluation tool that comes from the SAS suite of content assessment tools. The content assessment tools for SAS are free, and they're downloadable, and their purpose is to explore and evaluate your system. The system evaluation tool specifically is designed to survey your system, including metadata and configuration options, and to notify you if you're planning an upgrade or a migration. These are the things to be aware of. The system evaluation tool will always also alert you as to whether or not you have the latest security update applied or not. In the suite of content assessment tools, when you're planning your movements to Viya, there are 3 tools that I highly recommend. There's the code assessment tool, which explores your SAS code and identifies anything that you're running on your SAS 9 platform that may not run in Viya. There's the inventory tool. The inventory tool looks at the usage of what your system is doing on a day-to-day basis and ties that back to the products that you're licensed for and where they're coming from. That helps you plan. I'm using this much of this product in the Viya world. I probably want to make sure those things are covered in Viya. And then there's a profile tool, and profile tool also gives you information about your usage. So if you're not familiar with your security updates, take a look at those, and also consider the content assessment tools. Even if you're not moving to Viya immediately or doing active planning, the information that those tools give you about your individual usage of your SAS 9.4 system is invaluable to your administration and operations activities. This is a screenshot of the SAS product security site. The way you find security updates is in the search bar. You type your SAS 9.4 maintenance release number that you're looking for, and those bulletins will be displayed. The bulletins come with a package that have the manual installation instructions. It tells you what's in those packages. It tells you which CVEs are resolved. It's a useful tool, but that's where the security updates are found. So now moving on to SAS 9.4 M10, which is the next release we're planning, and we're planning on a release in 2027. The key features that we're delivering for 9.4 M10 are a furtherance of TLS automation beyond the web application server. We're going to expand multi-factor authentication to the entirety of the SAS platform and not just the middle tier. We have planned updates to some SAS access engines, and I'll tell you what these are. We will be introducing support for Proc Python, and we will make supported operating system changes. A note on the access engines. In the 9.4 M9 timeframe, we took on an effort where we did a top-to-bottom review of all SAS access engines. That review included everything that we needed to do to make sure, to the extent possible, that the access engines that you use in SAS 9.4 are identical or the same as those available in Viya. We did that in support of customers moving to Viya. We want to make sure, particularly from an access perspective, because that's typically the first things you're doing when you're coming into the system, you're gathering, manipulating your data, that those access engines are as consistent as they can be between the 2 platforms. That, too, was a large lift. Like I said before in the previous slide, we're targeting 2027 for the release of 9.4 M10. Things are looking good there. In 9.4 M10, we've coined the term TLS automation, and we're going to provide TLS automation for the entirety of the SAS platform. What TLS automation is the automation of the configuration of TLS for your entire SAS system using the SAS Deployment Wizard and managed through the SAS Deployment Manager. Like I said before, in SAS 9.4 M9, we released support for TLS automation for the middle tier. The prompts you receive for your certificates in TLS will be identical to those that are going to be applicable to the entirety of the SAS platform. SAS has long delivered, even before the 9.4 M8 platform, automated capabilities to configure your SAS web server, as well as environment manager for TLS. Like I said before, 9.4 M9, we have the middle tier, and foundation servers will be added next in 9.4 M10. In 9.4 M10, you will have two choices when it comes to automating TLS or configuring your systems for TLS encryption. You can either turn it on for the entirety of your platform, or you can turn it off. There will not be the option of, well, I just want to have, encryption enabled for my middle tier, or I just want to have encryption enabled for this server. It'll be an all or nothing proposition for TLS. The way the deployment wizard works and the deployment manager for TLS automation is for each SAS configuration level of your deployment, and you can think of the config level as a server, be it logical or not. For each level, we will prompt you for CA certificates. For internal certificates, and these are for all communications to cover data in motion internal to the SAS system, we'll prompt you for the public CA certificate, for the signed server certificate, as well as the public key. For what we call external TLS connections, those are communications that happen between the SAS system and an entity outside of SAS. For example, database or another third-party product. The only thing we'll prompt you for there will be the public CA certificate, because that's all we need. In the case of an in-place upgrade, if you've already configured your SAS deployment to use encryption, be that using TLS, there's manual configuration steps that we published today for the entirety of the platform. It is very typical for customers to have configured TLS for the middle tier using those instructions. For the SAS server side, these are what we call the IOM servers, the metadata server, things outside the metadata server like SAS Share, Connect, SPDS. Those are internal communications. We use what is called the net encryption algorithm. The net encryption algorithm is actually a checkbox in the SAS deployment wizard. And what the net encryption algorithm is, it allows you to specify the type of encryption you want to use for those internal servers. So you can select things like SAS proprietary, which is SAS encoding. You can select AES. You can select DS, triple S. And there's the option for SSL. When the specs for TLS 1.3 were written, there was a capability that was removed before TLS 1.2 and TLS 1.3. And that capability was an RSA key exchange where it negotiates the CA certificate used for encryption. SAS, as well as every other vendor in the world and every other user between TLS and 1.2 and 1.3, is getting rid of or eliminating this RSA key exchange from our systems. When you use the net encryption algorithm that was provided in releases 9.4 M8 and earlier, we removed it in 9.4 M9, when you specified that net encryption algorithm and you specified the type of encryption you wanted to use, the way SAS negotiated that certificate was through an RSA key exchange. So that will be eliminated and replaced with our TLS automation. It's also the case that if you followed manual instructions to configure a system for TLS, those will no longer be valid after 9.4 M9. The means by which you will configure a system for encryption will be the use of the SAS deployment tools. If you have any questions on that, or if you need any additional information, Melissa Zwerblia, who's the director of our SAS security offerings, will be doing a presentation later this afternoon at 3:45 in this very room. If you have nothing better to do, you can sit exactly where you are until 3:45. And magically, Melissa's going to appear, and she's going to tell you everything you need to know about TLS automation. I'm going to embarrass Melissa and ask her to stand because she's in the back of the room, so you guys can know exactly who you're looking for at 3:45. You're welcome, Melissa. Also in 9.4 M10, we will be introducing multi-factor authentication for the entirety of the SAS system. I'm just old enough to think that multi-factor authentication is a little creepy. I don't need my bank, my application, my flight, I don't need my dinner reservations to ask me who I am again once I've made those reservations or those activities. But let's face it, multi-factor authentication it's a fact in the world today. It is required by U.S. government regulations. It's required by industry regulations. It's required by European regulation. It is required. SAS will deliver multi-factor authentication for the entirety of the SAS platform. With 9.4 M10, MFA will be enabled or disabled for the entirety of the SAS deployment. In SAS 9.4 M9, we delivered a multi-factor authentication capability for the SAS middle tier. That capability is delivered entirely within SAS. There's no third-party component other than Google Authenticator if you choose to use it that's involved with the SAS-delivered M9 multi-factor authentication capability. We knew at the time that we would be introducing server-side multi-factor authentication. The scope and scale was too large for a single maintenance release. So concurrent with the delivery of the capability that came out with 9.4 M9, we were working on the server-side multi-factor authentication capability. And when I say server-side here, I'm talking about, we've got the SAS middle tier. You log in using user ID password to the middle tier. That's authenticated through the SAS login manager. If you log in directly to a SAS server, be it a connect session, a command line, you're logging in directly through an application. You're logging through Enterprise Guide, which does a metadata server login. Those are logins to the SAS server side. That's where we're delivering the new capabilities for multi-factor authentication within 9.4 M10. What this required to make the user experience as seamless and as positive as possible was we had to make adjustments from our multi-factor authentication architecture that was delivered in M9. So now, instead of being wholly delivered within the middle tier, where you don't require any other third-party product at all in the middle tier, what will happen now is when you enter a user ID password, you log in the middle tier, we will capture that request. We will contact external third-party MFA providers, either Okta or Duo, who will then do a push notification to your phone or your user's phone. They will respond. We'll get a trigger from Okta or Duo that the second factor authentication was either success or fail, and we will grant access based on the success or fail of that third-party MFA push notification. Identically, on the server side, we'll follow the same pattern. By no means did SAS underestimate the complexity of multi-factor authentication delivery for SAS servers. There are so many ways that you can log in to a SAS server. You can log in through a SAS client. You can log in directly. If you count the number of places in the SAS Foundation platform where you can enter a user ID or password and log into a SAS server, to date, we've identified 21 unique authentication endpoints. For each and every one of those authentication endpoints, we'll capture that user ID password, login attempt. We'll notify Okta or Duo. Okta or Duo will do a push notification out to your phone. It'll respond. We'll get a success or failure. It'll come back to the SAS server, and we will honor or deny that login attempt based on that second factor authentication. It's also the case that when you log in through the middle tier, you're doing what we call a token-based authentication. When you use the system, that token is going to get refreshed, which means the timeout value for that token is going to be extended. That's not true on the server side. When you log in the server side, you're doing a user-based authentication, and you're going to have a configurable timeline for which that second factor authentication is valid. So that presented a problem for our SAS 9.4 team. We didn't want to confuse users who log into the SAS middle tier with a token-based authentication and then access SAS servers using that authentication, and all of a sudden they have a different timeout value if they logged in directly from the server side. So we've taken extensive efforts to look at policies as far as how you're setting up multi-factor authentication, how you're setting up things like your bypass list, your timeout values, to make them as consistent as possible through the SAS middle tier and the SAS server side. Z Lee did a presentation yesterday at 2 o'clock. The presentations are available from the Innovate website, and they're also recorded. Z2 is here, and if Z could stand up. Yeah. Z has done all this work. Myself, along with Z, Melissa, our VP for the SAS 9.4 division, Margaret Kavar, if you guys have been around, you guys probably know Margaret, as well as Mickey Schaaf, who's the product manager for data management, are all available in the Innovation Hub. So if you ever had the right group of people to ask any question or figure out more about what's going on for SAS 9.4, you've got a collection of us at the Innovation Hub, and we can't leave that booth. So we're a captive audience. I welcome you to come by and give us a talk. On the right-hand side of the screen, I just give an example here of this is what the actual authentication is going to look like. And Z can correct me if I'm wrong, but I think this is actually the Duo screenshot. Is that true, Z? Yes. May look a little bit different for Okta, but that is going to be your path. I also want to mention that for multi-factor authentication in 9.4 M9, we did deliver support for the mainframe using IBM Z multi-factor authentication. It may interest you to know, if you just look at questions, comments, suggestions we receive from customers, we receive as many requests for multi-factor authentication for the mainframe as we do distributed systems, which shows you that no architecture, no system, no operating environment is unique when it comes to multi-factor authentication. It is pervasive across all computing architectures. From a SAS access perspective, like I said before, M9, we did a top-to-bottom review of our access engines for consistent with Viya. The bonus we got out of that is we also did test and validation, of course, with the most recent releases of the relational databases, the non-relational databases, and PC files for which we support. SAS 9.4 struggles, SAS as a whole struggles in documenting specific support statements for our access interfaces. And the reason why is the majority of our SAS access interfaces are built off the client associated with the server of the third-party manufacturer for that database. In many, many cases, a single client version will work with multiple server versions of that database. So if that was the only case we had to contend with, then the support statements are rather easy, and it's what we document today. We document we support this version and later of a database. The reason we can do that is because of the forward or backward compatibility, depending on how you look at it, of the database clients or the ODBC, JDBC interfaces for those databases. There are instances where client versions of the database are not available from the database manufacturers. Those include things like Google BigQuery, Salesforce, and there's also cases where we use an ODBC or JDBC driver that we provide for those SAS access engines. In those cases, the support statement is more emphatic about what versions we support, we don't support. We're never going to claim that we have support for a database version that's no longer supported by that database manufacturer. That just doesn't make sense. If there's no support for you and your usage of that database, there's no support in SAS and our usage of that database. So we're always looking at the forward statements. There's also cases where the third-party database will provide its own JDBC, ODBC driver. Those support statements to our clarity. What you're going to see very soon, and we're just now closing in on a policy statement change for our SAS access engines. It's actually in review with SAS Legal right now. You will be seeing a statement. The statement will read, SAS supports this minimum version of the database and later, unless otherwise specified in the system requirements document for that access engine. The reason the statement is being written that way is that there are occasionally Teradata 17 was one example, where the TTU Teradata client did not work with Teradata 20. The reason it did not work is they made a C compiler change. In turn, SAS had to make compiler changes associated with that access engine. So we had to specifically document, we support, Teradata 15, because it was still supported at the time, up to 1720. That means we weren't supporting 20 once it came out. We've now added support for 20 because we've made the adjustments, we did the change. So rest assured, if you're a SAS access engine, you can be confident that the SAS access interface support is valid for those versions of the database that are available. In the 9.4 plans right now, we know that we're testing and validating with new clients coming from Oracle, IBM DB2, Snowflake, Teradata, as well as PostgreSQL. It is not common that we find problems with our access engines with new database clients because the database vendors have been in business for a long time. They take their forward and backward compatibility statements very seriously. When a new client is not going to work when an older client's not going to work with a new database version, the database vendors are very explicit in documenting that and vice versa. So you should not have issues trying to figure out your support statements. We just want to make sure that ours are as clear as possible. Margaret Kavar will be providing a session on ASICS engines. That's going to be 44:45 today in this same room. And it's no joke. Right after Melissa's session, Margaret's going to show up, and she's going to do her session. So if you want to stay in the same seat and hear both, you can, assuming you didn't sit here all day waiting for Melissa to show up. In 9.4, we will also be delivering support for ProcPython. ProcPython was delivered in Viya several years ago. Since that date, you have continually demanded that we deliver support for ProcPython in SAS 9.4. We are doing that. It's undeniable the demand that SAS customers have for the integration with ProcPython. You've got entire populations of customers that are using ProcPython or using Python code. That needs to be integrated with your SAS code. We want to make that integration as convenient, as available as possible. So the features that we're delivering with ProcPython, you'll be able to run your Python code in your SAS session. What will happen is you'll have a ProcPython statement. You'll have a submit and submit statement. You put your Python code in between those statements. You execute. You run your SAS code. Python runs in Python. Results come together. You get your result. You'll be able to call most SAS functions from Python statements. You'll be able to move data between SAS data sets and pandas data frames. You'll be able to share variables between Python and SAS. And you'll also be able to evoke SAS and FCMP functions and submit SAS code from your Python statements. The goal, just like in Viya, is to make the integration between SAS and Python something you can use on a daily basis and something you really don't have to think about. I saw that Chris Hemediger's in the back of the room. Chris could not be a more avid fan of the availability of Python in SAS 9 than any of you as users. And in no small part did Chris not drive and force our hands to support Python within SAS statements.
Will it work on ZOS?
It will work on ZOS. And I'm saying that with a very high level of confidence, not a commitment. And the other thing that you might want to be aware of, and I was meeting with a customer yesterday. We had long-standing debates and we had heated debates, and the end of the story was I was wrong and R&D was right. I was pretty adamant that we would be able to configure and deliver ProcPython and install and configure using the deployment tools. There's two things that have to be specified with a Python. You have to tell us where Python's installed. what version you're using. And then we have the SAS integration bits and bytes. You have to tell us, where those are. I was highly confident that those values wouldn't change on a user-by-user basis. And the people who know better, which are developers, said, on a user-by-user basis, they might want to use a different version of Python. They might want to use it in a different location. If we lock users into one configuration item, it is going to be a problem. Usually it's me that's going back to R&D and proving from statements from you guys, from customers, that says this is the way it's going to be, and your opinion, though interesting, is irrelevant. They turned the tables on me and said, hey, Joe, here's 5 customers, and they're telling me, individual users are having different versions of Python. So what's going to happen now is when you bring up Python with SAS, you're going to set environment variables for those locations. So it will not be in the deployment tools. And ultimately, that's the right answer. And again, I was wrong, and they were right. The last thing I want to address is support operating system changes that are coming 9.4 M10. New in 9.4 M10, SUSE 16 is coming out. We will support SUSE 16 in addition to those platforms that are always supported for M9. We will not be eliminating end supports for Red Hat. Like I said before, vendors hit on releases that are amazingly popular. Rails 7 has been one of those. When Rails 7 moved to end of life, the support calls, I'm sure, to Red Hat, and I know for a fact to SAS, were extremely large. What do you mean it's gone? And, well, it's gone. I can't support it if Red Hat doesn't support it. Microsoft has also end-of-life Windows Server 16 as well as Windows 10's clients. So they will be removed in SAS 9.4 M10. So with that, that's my last slide. Like I said, we've got a host of the exact right people that you need to be talking to in the Innovation Hub. I encourage you to take advantage. They're going to have answers that I don't. And it's a great opportunity to get those answers.
All righty, we have a few minutes for 2 questions. Oh, my goodness. Maybe I can get 3. All right, Joe?
With the product Python, is there going to be any changes to how SAS Pi works? Do they have anything to do with each other, or totally unrelated?
They're separate and distinct. And you can turn around and you can talk to Chris Hemediger about that. He will tell you everything you need to know about the 2. Yes, sir.
Just super quick, any chance that we might see the access engines become fully available rather than a la carte?
In SAS 9.4, I don't think so. I know that that's the case in Viya, and I can tell you why. In SAS 9.4, it's an incredibly valuable tool for us to know on an access engine by access basis how many licenses exist, how many support calls come in. It lets us prioritize. We're absent that information in Viya, and it's useful information for us to know what you're using and what you're not using. An example of that would be Yellowbricks. We expected a significant demand for Yellowbricks over Postgres, and I know, based on licenses and calls, that it doesn't exist. I have to inform Viya that that's the case. So those are investments that we shouldn't be prioritizing.
Thanks for the presentation, Joe. It's great to see that SAS is not just keeping 9.4 support active, they're actually investing and upgrading and adding new features as well. With that said, you mentioned multi-factor authentication for logging in. Are you doing anything for internal accounts as well and service accounts with MFA?
Yeah, and Z spoke to this extensively in his presentation. Internal accounts would paste on the bypass list. If you're talking about SAS admin, for example, there's so many uses of SAS admin. The last thing we want to do is continually prompt you for a second factor authentication. And because of our internal usage, you can always set up a separate user account with SAS admin privileges and then subject that account to multi-factor authentication if you want to do business that way and those continual prompts. And Z in his presentation also addressed, in the cases of of batch processing. By definition, you probably don't want a user to be there when you're doing your batch processing to have to respond every time. So those things will be in the bypass list. So it takes a lot of planning to accurately set up and administer multi-factor authentication. Does that
This is
answer your
our-
question?
Sorry, Joe. Go ahead. This is our last question.
Hi, myself Shiva, and our users are mostly using the Databricks and Snowflake. So nowadays we are facing the issue with the bulk load option. So in the M10, we can expect the bulk load option in upcoming future.
Which option in Snowflake?
Bulk load. See, for example, if you
Bulk
are
load, yeah.
yeah.
I know that I've looked at that recently. I would ask you to look at if you just Google Snowflake bulk load.
Yeah, the bulk load option is available in the SAS Viya, but it's not available in the SAS 9.4, M8 or M9. So we are expecting on the M10.
Can you make a note, Melissa, and I'll look at that? I thought it was already there, to be honest.
Thank you.
I thought it was there, now he's got to question myself, and again, I'm going to be wrong and he's going to be right, but. Okay. And if it's not there, email me at joe.hatcher@sas.com and I'll poke at it.
All right, thank you, everybody. Let's give Joe a warm round.
Thank you all. I appreciate it.